it's time to talk about Tua. It's not easy, but we're going to get into it, and we're going to be talking about this not just as what happened this week, not just as what happened in 2022, but as a full look at his career so far. And we're going to be taking a look at asking a deep question of whether or not he should call it quits at the end of it. But we'll set the stage first, if you will. Yeah. So he obviously did very well at Alabama. He was put in for Jalen Hurts and won the 2018 national championship, was that the 2018 one? He won a national championship after being subbed in for Jalen Hurts. He was drafted 5th overall to the Dolphins, and he was supposed to be the guy for Miami, and so far he has been. Obviously, he had the controversy in year one with them kind of saying Ryan Fitzpatrick is our quarterback, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's a more journeyman, not necessarily a let's go into the season with him as our starter type quarterback, especially when you picked one at 5th overall, which is more of a common occurrence where you draft a quarterback high and bench him. But they kind of flip-flopped on that, said, no, Ryan Fitzpatrick is our guy, no, Tua's our guy. They benched Tua at one point in the season after starting him after week 6. After week 7 was when Tua got his start. And then Tua got benched in week 11 and then was injured in practice that week and missed week 12 as well, but then was the starter for the rest of the year. So he kind of overcame that controversy with Ryan Fitzpatrick and the subsequent benching and starting that took place.
Yeah, and, he had been benched for his play. It wasn't benched for, as I've kind of talked about with other extenuating circumstances for quarterbacks, he was benched for his play in the game. And then he was injured the next week, which kind of starts this slew of injuries, the history of which I'm about to get into, where in college, he suffered 6 injuries in a 2-year span. And one of those injuries was a dislocated hip, which was what ended his season prior to being drafted to the league. And then you go into the league, and he has that first thumb issue, which why he missed week 12 of his rookie year. And then he goes ahead and he has a rib issue, he has a chest issue, and those are his issues for his first 2 years in the league. And then the concussions start to roll in. In week 3, 2022, Tua hit his head hard on the ground, stood up, and then took a couple steps and fell back down, having to be held up by his offensive lineman before walking under his own power to the sideline and into the locker room. He was not designated as being under concussion protocol during that game. However, in week 4, 2022, he was officially designated with a concussion after he got slammed back into the turf against the Bengals, and that required him to be stretchered off of the field. Now, fast forward later into that year, week 15, 2022, he's once again hit his head on the ground again and gets an official concussion designation. And now that brings us to 2024, week 2, against the Bills. He lowers his head into another player and suffers his 3rd official concussion, one of which has landed him on IR, where he will miss a minimum of 4 games this year.
Yeah, this is a very serious thing, a very serious issue, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of reasoning for it. Most injuries, you can kind of see a history and you can say, oh, well, he's hurt his leg a lot in the past, so his leg is weaker. This is not the same. He's just getting really unlucky with his head hitting the ground a lot and then not being smart enough protecting himself this past week against the Bills. And the media and fans definitely kind of agree that retirement is in his best interests. There is not enough money that will pay for a new brain if he keeps getting these concussions and ends his career not knowing his own name. That's on the extreme side of things, but with the way his career is going, there have been 2 seasons where he's been very badly concussed. And obviously last year he was kind of fine. He had a healthy season, but he was being a lot safer. And I think this year he's kind of gone back to that 2022 era where he was just slinging it, running, and then not being as safe with his body and his head. And on the other side, the people that don't think that he should retire is mainly Tua himself. He loves football. It's been part of his life for his entire life, basically. And it's given him a lot of opportunities, and he's very passionate for the sport and doesn't want to leave it. And I understand that. I get it. But man, you gotta think hard about it at this point.
Yeah. And it's not a question that hasn't been called into question in the past. Like, this topic was being discussed in 2022 after his 2 concussions, arguably 3 concussions. And, people were like, he should retire. It's not safe. And that's when he himself said, like, no, I love the game. I'm going to keep playing. And he's kept playing up until now. But it's a third one in a 2-year span. And it's kind of, it's bringing a lot more pressure to the cause for retirement. Like, there's been a lot of studies, and there was kind of a bombshell to the NFL when these studies came out about the concussions and about the risks of it all. And there's definitely quality of life drop off whenever these concussions, these repeated traumatic brain injuries pile on top of one another. And I mean, Mike Tyson, these Muhammad Ali, like these boxers, those are a lot more concussion based but it's a lot more frequent in the sport to have a concussion, and we see heavily some decline in their health. And so, while that's not been the case for so many football players, it could be when he's notably having this many concussions that are being caught and he's getting his time away. But there's really no way to just strengthen your brain to be like, yeah, don't get concussed. It's not a muscle that you can strengthen to rehab from. It's just something that happens and you have to go on with it. And that's a great point for why he should retire, is like, you can't rehab this. There's no cure for the injury you will sustain long term after this concussion.
And to further that point of he should retire, he's sustained 3 official concussions, a 4th that is very likely a concussion, and countless others in practice, in games. There are so many unreported concussions in the NFL, and it's happening less and less now that there is a third party that tells you whether or not you have a concussion. Mm-hmm. It's not up to the team anymore. But regardless of whether that third party is there, they aren't catching everything. There are concussions that go unreported. And the fact that he's had these that are this bad, he's gone a year without one, and then he hit his head against a player and his hands immediately were seizing up again, and it was back to that sign of a really bad concussion, is just the biggest argument for his retirement, is that they aren't becoming less severe.
Yeah.
Now, his arguments for playing is that he's, not a great argument, but he's still got the talent. He's still got the potential to lead the Dolphins. He's the starting quarterback, and his role is important. And so if he truly believes that role is that important, that he needs to go out there for his brothers on the field, that he will do that. And his mind is probably operating in that mode where he's like, I need to be out there for them. Mm-hmm. And there is also medical advances, and concussion care is getting better, but not that much better. Like, it's getting better, and it's better than it was back in the early days of football, but it is not good enough that he should keep playing, in my opinion. So I guess to officially state my final thoughts, he's got to retire. He's got to look at it big picture, his family, his wife, his kids, and just say, I need to be around for them, and call it quits.
Yeah, he needs to cognitively be there for them, and through their development, through their growth. He shouldn't be regressing in his brain activity at the age of this stage of life that he's in. You shouldn't be battling the things that he could be if these concussions continue. Unfortunately, football isn't a sport that you can just be safe at. There's no way to guarantee your head won't come under any more trauma. So I'm also on that boat of, it's best to retire, but I understand that it's going to be a very tough decision for the player himself to come to, especially with support from others who might, lean him towards continuing to play.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out this segment from our upcoming podcast. It comes out tomorrow, so be sure to check it out if you did enjoy this. It'll be out on our YouTube channel right here as well as on Spotify. Both links will be down in the description down below, so be sure to go check those out. Click those links. We would greatly appreciate it. Subscribe, stick around for more.